Hello, Ron Bashar here. So I have been absent for a few days again. It's been busy. So about Diablo 4 this season, season 9, I believe it was. I have one last video for you. I have the best build. This is S plus tier. It's the best build in the game. It has a few variants, but this build all around the Thorns, Poison, Spiritborn is the best build in the game. And it's funny because the first video I did share with you guys was probably the worst build of the season. I'm exaggerating a little bit for comedy effect, but yeah, not very successful. So let me show you this one. Let me show you, a boss first. Very easy. So the single target damage suffers a little bit here. So for example, some of the bosses can be a little bit annoying, Duriel and Andariel, because they get immune, and there are some intermissions in which there are some adds. And against those adds, your damage is not very good because you rely on the Mystic Circle to deal damage. It's an important part of your damage, but as you will see against Grimoire, for example, we are pretty fine. And they have sadly removed those nice safe zones we had. That's how I go. And she should be dying. Oh, he did live quite a bit. Okay, so that's about it. I mean, there are some variances as to our damage, so yeah, this was, but as you can see, it does take only a few seconds to kill the regular ones. The Beast in Ice, Zir, Var, Shangri, Goar, those are easy, and Daryl and Duriel are a little annoying. Belial is also fine. That's generally how it goes. Let's grab this. Oh, Ancestral Collection. Wow, you don't see those every day, do you? Not that I need, but okay. So this build is called, as I said, the Thorns, Poison, Spiritborn. There is a new unique item for season 9 called Balazan's Maxlatl. I don't know how that's pronounced. These are mighty Aztec references. Yeah, so let's go over it, what we use. So my items are, to put it very mildly, less than ideal, so I had to do some extras, but I will tell you what the perfect thing is. So what we want is Loyalty's Mantle, because if you remember from the expansions released season 6, there were a lot of bug mechanics with Spiritborn, some stuff that should scale up to some point, but they weren't scaling up to some point, they were scaling indefinitely and infinitely, right? And there are some similar mechanics again this season, mainly and namely the Jaguar Spirit Hall. That's why we want to amplify our Jaguar Spirit Hall as much as we could. So the unique effect is very important, because if your minor and major spirit match, they become much more powerful, right? And we also gain cooldown reduction and vigor cost reduction. That's also pretty good. So we want this unique power as potent as it could be. That's the most important thing. The second most important thing is the damage reduction. Then we have the all stats, right? So what I'm telling you is the order that you should be looking out for things for. So we first want something around 60% unique power, right? Then we want the greater effects on the damage reduction. Then we want the greater effects on the all stats, and the other two are not really very important. Velocity is kind of useless. So mine is an okay one, right? I have found it at some point when I was playing the awful build, so I kept it. Yeah. And you want the masterworking to be on the damage reduction only, right? You want orange triple masterwork damage reduction. Then we have the Razorplate. So the build I'm showing you is a little bit wrong. Why? Because it requires an extreme amount of Paragon points. So you kind of need around 300 Paragon points for the build to function. And as you can probably tell, I have around 260 Paragon points here, because you get 28 points extra from the Altars of Lilith. So your Paragon point distribution is your Paragon points plus 28, right? So 235 plus 28, I have 263 Paragon points to spend, and this build becomes fully functional at 300s. So I should actually be playing a variant with what's the name, Shroud, right? Shroud of False Death. But I wanted to see the real thing, so I went for this, and I started from like Paragon 210s. It was much more painful because really the build gets much more in shape as you get the Paragon points. So I would say the minimum point of Paragon points you should be speccing into this build would be around 260s or so, right? So I did get into it too early. I should be playing with Shroud, but as I said, I was curious, and I had a decent enough Razorplate, as you can see, right? Perfect unique power and 2 great affixes. So Razorplate is very interesting, guys. As far as I can tell, it's the only item in the game where your masterworking does not matter the least bit. It doesn't matter at all. Let me think. I mean, actually, it does matter a little bit because of the 25% thingy. So let me get into it. So as you can see, the item only has thorns in it, right? So, and the masterworking bonuses, right, the 25% masterworking bonuses only apply to the base value, right? If you have a greater affix there, it does not get affected by the greater affix. So yeah, as long as it falls on anything with a greater affix, it doesn't matter. So I could have 3 rolls on the same first thorns or 2 rolls, whatever it is, right? It doesn't really matter. But of course, if it falls on the non-greater affixes, you will actually lose thorns. So I was lucky here. So mine is perfectly masterwork for a double, right? And the rumors that we will be using is, I'm sure you have seen this season, Ahu Cox is a little bit powerful, especially if you use Lockheed mechanics. And then we have the other rumor, this Tamzan. Instead of Tam, you can also use spend resource thingy, Poke, I believe it was called, right? And yeah, so we are looking for the unique power to be good, right? And we also want as many greater affixes as we can, but it doesn't matter on which, because they are all the same thing. Razorplate, and if you are using Shroud, we want life and all stats in that order as the greater affixes. But you will ultimately spec away from it, and I wouldn't suggest that you spend a lot of Obdusite on it. So as long as you have at least 2 of the masterworking rolls in those, that's fine, right? Let's move on to the glove. Yeah, my glove is a little bit wrong. It should have been armor instead. Yeah, that's why I'm a little bit suffering here. So we have attack speed, we have lucky hit, enemy is vulnerable, and the third one should actually be armor instead of dexterity, but as you can see, I just had no room. I am playing the crushing hand variant. There are a lot of variants. There is a rake variant, there is a crushing hand variant, there is a quill volley variant. They all do different things, but the main idea is to abuse the Jaguar Spirit Hole. It was something with V, the Viscous, I think, yeah, the legendary node from the Paragon tree. There are some broken interactions, you just abuse them, and you will remember this from season 6, right? This aspect. So this is a little bit weird. The interaction with the Jaguar Spirit Hole is weird. This means you kill an ad and you deal insane amounts of damage, right? Because it synergizes, and I think it's a little bit broken, it synergizes with the Jaguar Spirit Hole, the damage goes insane, right? So you want the Mystic Circle Potency and Crushing Hand size tempers here, the Fell Soothsayer thingy, and as I said, instead of Dexterity, you want Armor here. And my Masterworking is not really very good, yeah. And we have Balazan here. We want to Masterwork Balazan triple Bastion. Bastion gives us Thorns, so we scale of Thorns here. And as you can see, the unique power is pretty insane. Each attack damage close enemies for 1.5% of your Thorns, and deals 100% of this damage as poisoning. And each time you hit with Thorns the poisoning damage is increased. This is actually what causes our damage. We do thumbs on again, so we can go for a lot of damage here. We don't go for barrier generation. We can handle our own barrier. Boots are duelist, a classic. Vortex size and movement speed. Dexterity, life, armor. This is actually a good boot, right? If I had armor, great graphics here would have been perfect. And the missing armor here and the missing great graphics in here kind of forced me to use some different instances than I should do. We use a quarterstaff for the block chance for additional defense mechanics. We want dexterity, life, and lucky to restore resource. This item is actually perfect. I mean, because the third great graphics doesn't matter. We want dexterity and life, both great graphics. This one, the third one, can have a great graphics or not, because as you can see, it's very high. You want to triple masterwork the Jaguar spiritual potency. Sadly, my roller is low. I didn't dare do the temper again. We want Jaguar spiritual potency and Mystic Circle potency, and we use Plains power here. Gives us the Mystic Circle, and Mystic Circle keeps our ferocity stacks at maximum and deal 21% damage per stack. And I think our stacks are like 12 or so, so this is an insane damage. That's why the build is kind of on and off mode, right? I will show you while we are doing a pit run. Then we have, this is an awful piece, sadly. So what we want is dexterity, percentage dexterity, and a great graphics in it. I just couldn't get it, right? It's so weird. And we do not want life or movement speed. We want apex and potent, right? Those both add damage for us. Potent should be here. This one, sadly, mine is level 3. And imagine, if I had like 3 potent levels here, that would be 60%, right? It would add like 25% damage to me. And the other one is apex. Which one was apex? I don't recall. Apex, yeah, this one. So these are the passages that you want on the amulet, but of course it's not very easy to find. So try to be content with percentage dexterity, great graphics, and whatever you can find, right? Obviously, life isn't bad, total armor isn't bad, because you can save something. And we have conceited on the as a power, because we put it on the amulet because it gives us the most damage, right? Because powers are amplified by 100% on 200 weapons and 50% on amulets. We use Mystic Circle, Potency, and Resilient as our tempers, right? This season's Mythic unique, yeah, this is the hot Mythic unique this season. We have Ring of Starless Skies. Gives us 50% damage up and 50% cost reduction. We want attack speed mostly, right? So you could masterwork triple attack speed. You might need to check the breakpoints there. And finally, we had Vehement Brawler. You could use the Crushing Hand version of that one. What was the name of that power? Find it. Yes, Unrelenting. You could use Unrelenting. I like this one. Gives us more damage and gives us a little bit cooldown reduction on the ultimate, right? Because my stuff is not properly done. So dexterity, attack speed, and all resistance. I had to do it. Normally you want life here, but my resistances and my armor are a little bit shaky. That's because I spec'd into the build, a little earlier on, right? I would get some more resistance from Paragon normally. And the Hunter cooldown reduction and Mystic Circle potency, and you triple masterwork the Mystic Circle potency in here. Yeah. So yeah, that's about it. For the skills, I will put the max roll link again. You can take a look there, but generally, we use some placeholder skills in basic. We just put 1 point in Crushing Hand and get enhanced crushing hand. So the crushing hand is just a method of delivery, right? It gives us barrier, that's why we use it. Rake is also used as a delivery mechanic for the cooldown reduction. We use Vortex to pull enemies in. We use Ravager. We use Toxic Skin. Increase our Thorns. Apex, Focal Point. These are just to get at these. Unrestrained Power. Yeah. We use Counterattack. We use the poisoning thingies. Bastion is very important because we scale off Thorns. Resilient is a nice defensive mechanic. Potent, we use the Hunter. We use all of these passives here, and finally we use Noxious Resonance. As for the Mercenaries, we use Rahir for this. Keep in mind that this 15% all resistance will be removed from you when you are in a group, right? That's very important. So my resistances are barely holding up here. So when I join a group, I become much more squishy. And yeah, the 15% more damage. We use Altkin with Field of Languish and Vortex. So we gather the enemies, and Altkin makes them deal 20% less damage, which is pretty nice, right? We will get out of enemies on top of our head. So when we are fighting bosses in the pit, it's very important that they have ads, right? And out of the 10 bosses, 6 have ads. And if they have ads or not is very important, because that boss thing damage, so our trash damage is insanely good, right? Probably the best build. And our boss damage is not that good. So what we want to do is we want the boss to spawn ads, right? And we gather the guys, we kill the ads, and when we kill the ads, the Fell Soothsayer and the Jaguar Spirit Hall deals insane damage, right? As you can see, it's up to 44%. Normally this is 15%. Yeah. About the Paragon tree, we use these 5: Canny, Hubris, Ritual, Spirit, and Wildfire. Wildfire helps us reduce the cooldowns. This is what it looks like. Yeah. This is pretty good, right? Gives us more Thorns, gives us more damage. As you can see, I have brought it to max 30% damage. This is scaling a little bit weirdly again, right? Just like season 6. Well, not like just like season 6. It was insane, but it's still pretty powerful. And we have sapping. Yeah, that is another 30% damage up. Let me show you a pit run. I did do 100s, as you can see, right? But let me go 90 or something here. 3, let me go. So as you will observe now, the trash will go very nice. I just did that because my glyphs are 83. I'll get a level on my glyphs. But the boss will be very important. If they don't have ads, it will be painful. Okay, now we gather them, and our so you should be engaging groups once every 10 seconds or so, because that is the Mystic Circle duration. So because without Mystic Circle, we don't do too much damage, right? So we kill them within the Mystic Circle. Now I go about a bit, right? I wait. Okay. Kill them. I pull them to the Mystic Circle again. Kill them. As you can see, it goes very quickly, right? Again, we have the circle. So in the final version of the build, you should actually be using Fists of Fate, but the problem is I just don't have enough defense, right? Even with defensive incenses, I just don't have enough. So damage reduction auras are a problem for us, so that's why we use the Horadic thingies. Oh, I didn't mention that, right? Let's get back into it. As you can see, I am cancelling their damage reduction auras, because it's a painful business for me. That's the Horadic power we're using. We use Disintegrate. I'll just show that. Okay. So the trash should be taking about 3 minutes, but the boss can take pretty long. right? Depending on what it is. So, you know, if the boss fight goes long, don't look down on it, because as I said, if they don't have ads, it's a problem. See what happens when I fight without the Mystic Circle, right? I engage a little too early. So try to put like 5-6 seconds between the engages. Okay? And as soon as you kill one thing, and this is how the build gets stuck, guys. So because our resource restoration comes from a lucky hit, right? And it's only 15%. And we have some additional mechanics in place, but still it can fail. So when it's crowded, we are inflicting a lot of hits per second, because a skill can inflict more than one hit, right? Because cast happens once, but a hit happens every time you hit someone. Okay, there is a damage reduction aura. Let's cancel it. So the way I cancel it is I just touch them with the seasonal power, right? That cancels it. Okay, it's up. Okay, I'm trying to. Oh, I almost died. That was interesting. Whoa, how did I die? How did I almost die? Weird. Shoot dying. Okay. So guys, do not engage two groups immediately one after the other, right? Make some time for the Mystic Circle to cool down, because as long as one is present, another one will not. I mean, it has an internal cooldown, right? When there is one active, it prevents the lucky hit from the other. So, you know, when you have a Mystic Circle active, you cannot have another, right? And the duration is 10 seconds, which means you cannot have another Mystic Circle for 10 seconds. Let me try this. It's just better to let go. They are all dying. That was a little weird. So the fell suit here is a little weird. Sometimes it doesn't kill. So our resource management comes from the lucky hit on the weapon, right? And sometimes it just doesn't proc. And when it's crowded, you can kind of assume it to be 100%, but does this guy have ads? I think he did. Now I used to know this by heart, when, as you can see, my single target is not that great, right? I'm not doing much damage here. And if he doesn't have ads, we are a bit of a problem. Do those count? I don't think so. And I could get stuck resource-wise indeed. That's a problem. But I can't. I'm trying to kill the guy next to this one. Doesn't work. Shame. Okay, now as you can see, I'm stuck. My resource is depleted. Yeah, I have to wait for it to. So it does happen rarely, but it does. Can I pull this guy? Yeah, I want the thingy to work. The guy doesn't come, does it? That's a little bit annoying, sir. Yeah. So the foul soothsayer doesn't work there, sadly. Yeah, this will be a painful fight. So it took me 4 minutes to kill the trash, which is actually a little bit longer than what I was expecting. But I am fighting this guy for 1.5 minutes, and I barely brought him down to 80%. Right? It's terrible. I mean, I have some mechanic to scale, right? You will know this from Diablo 3. If you played it, there is a gem there called Bane of the Stricken, and it makes you deal more damage over time, right? I did get stuck again. Yeah. So guys, if I was able to kill this guy near, if I was able to kill those pustules near this guy, the gem is helping me. So we should see a sharp drop if the guy decides to work. Nope, didn't work. Yeah, sometimes the fell soothsayer doesn't work. So we should be dealing like 30% of this guy's HP. I will not move out and see what happens. Please work just once. Nope. Didn't work once. So when I kill the guy with Fell Soothsayer, it actually does insane amounts of damage. But yeah, sometimes it just doesn't work. It's a little silly. The scaling mechanic is helping me, but this is obviously not ideal, as you can tell. I have been fighting this guy for 3 minutes now. Aha, it did work. That was weird.
Excellent fight.
Yeah. That wasn't very good, was it? But thing is, guys, it's funny. I do have a 100 under my belt with this character, right? I did do Greater Rift Pit 100, and the boss died in 15 seconds or something, maybe. That was, yeah. But you know, it was the. You know, there is a fat lady that comes out of the ground, right? I attacked her. A few seconds in, she summoned some ads. I pulled them together. I killed them all. The boss's HP dropped by like 85% or something, right? And we are talking about, you know, Pit 100. It's a bit of a town lag. Okay, so about the Horadic spellcraft thingy, we use Disintegrate tied to Crushing Hand. You could also use it tied to the Hunter if you wish, but my Hunter's cooldown is not. Yeah, Disintegrate is about 5.3 seconds, but we have some cooldown reduction methods on the Hunter. Could use on the Hunter as well. We use Corrosive Vapor as the infusion, and as for the Arcana, we use Bottled Wind, more barrier, right? We use Invigorating Helix. We'll get to this, and we use Fractured Core. Fractured Core is to cancel the damage resistance auras. So what you do is you use the skill, right? There is a the thingy pops up. What's up? The name? Arcane Conductor. So there is the Arcane Conductor, and there is you, right? And there is a ray in between, and the ray hits someone, and that ray will cancel the damage resistance auras. But it also will affect you with an stacking 15% damage reduction aura. What I mean by stacking is if there are multiple monsters with damage reduction auras, damage resistance auras, and you cancel them both, for example, like if there is 2, then you will be taking 30% increased damage for the duration, right? Maybe that's how I almost died when I was doing the pit, right? And yeah. So that's about it. You could also use the resource generation maybe, but I don't think it's very necessary. And for the Horadic jewels, we use 2 or more Arcana from School of Denial. We gain 30% Barrier, Fortify, and Thorns. Yeah, you can see that here. Denial and Denial. And I think also Denial, yeah. So we gain 30% Barrier and Thorns both, right? This is, I think, a classic. Every build is using this 6% primary core set. That is a lot of damage, right? Take a look at my dexterity, 3,200, right? And let me remove this. Yeah. So it does add a decent bit of damage, 378%. Yeah. So it does add like 10% damage on its own. Also gives us 6% life. Pretty good, unhindered, nice. Right? But we are permanent unstoppable. And finally, we use this one. So this is why I was able to kill the boss. Normally, guys, this build should not be able to kill that boss. There is this one. After you deal damage over time to an enemy, they take 0.33% more damage over time from you forever. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of scaling, right? Because the fight goes on long, right? He hits me, he gets poisoned, right? And then they take 0.33% more poison damage, right? And again, right? And the key passive that we have, instantly birds are poisoned. So it's a bit of a combo. So if you play Diablo 3, as I said, this is similar. to the Bane of the Stricken. You keep dealing 1%, stacking more damage, and there were builds like this in Diablo 3 as well. Very nice trash clear, but helpless against the boss. So what you did was, you cleared the trash in 3 minutes maybe, and then you waited for the Bane of the Stricken to stack. Because guys, imagine 1%, 1%, 1%, and you stack it multiple times per second, right? So after a while you are doing like 500, 600% increased damage, and finally it starts becoming tangible, right? That's what we also do here. Yeah, so that's about it. On the weapon we have sapphires for increased vulnerable damage. So the thing is, guys, the vulnerable is a bit of a problem with this build, right? We do not have too many sources of vulnerable, so we use the fell soothsayer, right? Whenever we cast an incarnate, we make enemies vulnerable, and that is counterattack and also Ravager. Those are both incarnate skills, and we are constantly casting them, but just in case that we might not have it, we also use the lucky hit to make enemies vulnerable as well, because fell soothsayer only works if the enemy is vulnerable, right? That's very important. So even though we have this fell soothsayer thingy, we make the enemies vulnerable with incarnate skills, just in case we also have this, so it would work, because it's a little bit capricious, I would say. I mean, it sometimes doesn't work. They have to be close to each other or something. It's a little bit weird, right? If you saw there, we couldn't get the fell soothsayer to proc, right? Even though we killed those pustules as best as we could. But take my word for it, if the boss had ads, instead of like 4 minutes, it would have taken 30 seconds. Because you kill the ads, and if there are multiple, especially, right? You kill the ad, that damage gets echoed to the other guy, and you kill that ad as well, and that damage gets echoed to the boss. As I said, you get like 70-80%, right? If you have seen my videos, where I was going for a pretty decent placement in hardcore, right? In season 6, I was doing pit 150 at the time, because these broken interactions were all extremely broken, and there were a lot of them. And so the way you kill the boss was, you clear the trash in like 5 minutes, you get to the boss. If the boss didn't have ads, you would leave, right? If the boss had ads, then I said didn't have, right? If the boss didn't have ads, you leave. If the boss had ads, right, you just wait for the boss to spawn the ads, and you would kill one ad, and it would kill the boss outright from full HP. That's how much it did, right? The broken interactions. Now it's a little bit more tangible, like 20 to 25% maybe, but if there are multiple ads around, you can deal a lot of damage. But back then it was a single ad next to the boss, you kill it, and the boss dies. That's how broken it was, and this build capitalizes on the same idea. So this build can and probably will get fixed in the next season. That's why it's not like Diablo 3, right? Every season the upper limit of the Great Rifts pits that we can clear doesn't go really up, right? Because there are always broken interactions, and they fix them. And even though they buff us every season a little bit, it's not enough. So guys, about the consumables, we use the attack speed one, right? This one for the additional lucky hit, because you have seen it, guys, right? I mean, if the lucky hit doesn't work, you do not get your resources. You just have to wait until you regenerate a little bit, right? That's a little bit annoying. So, and also attack speed also helps. As for the incenses, right, it does change a little bit. So we go for dexterity, right? For the defensive incense, we actually want the Thorns one, right? But my armor is not enough, so I have to use this one, sadly, the armor one, because of the missing affix here. So I wanted the armor here, I don't have it. I want a greater affix on the armor here, I don't have it. I have resistance here, and to make the resistances work, I also have this one, and that caps everything I have, as you can see. So that's about it. This is the best build of the season, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments, and I will try to answer to the best of my ability. And I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.